Hello and welcome to the biology topic plants, lesson 3, plant reproduction. In this lesson, we're going to have a little look at plants and flowers and how different plants and flowers reproduce. So firstly, you're going to have a look at this diagram here, which is a cross section of a plant, and you can see the petals. See the petals here, but you can also see the internal organs of the plant. And we're going to talk through what the different parts of the plant are called and what their role is. So you have got 8 parts there that you need to be able to label. Not only do you need to be able to label them, but you also need to know the function of them. So firstly, the petals. We know the petals can be all sorts of brightly different colours, and that will be to attract insects. Then the next one, this one here, this funny little shape here, is the anther. The anther is attached to the filament. And these make up the stamens. So lots of these, you can see 3 here in this diagram. And the stamen is the male part of the reproductive system of the plant, and the anther here contains the pollen grains and produces the male sex cells. Go on down here, you can see the sepals here that are surrounding the bottom part that the petals come out of. And if we go over to the right-hand side, you've got the stigma and also the style. So if you look, the stigma's up at the top, and then you travel down and there's the style. And then down at the bottom here, we're looking at the ovary. Inside the ovary, you can find the ovals. Now, these are known as, all of this makes up the carpels, and this is the female parts of the plant cell reproductive system, okay? And it contains the female sex cells. Now, what you've got to remember is that the pollen grains that are made on the anther here need to be transported from the stamen to the stigma, okay? So to go from the male reproductive organs to the female reproductive organs. And we've just labelled there which ones are the male parts, which ones are the female parts. Okay, now what we've talked about are the reproductive organs. How that pollen is transported between plants or within even a plant is essential for the new plant growing. So pollination has to happen, and there are a couple of different methods that pollination can happen by. So firstly, you need to remember that pollination is when the pollen is taken. Okay, so it will be taken from the stamen and transferred to the stigma. Now, it can happen by self-pollination, so by the plant within itself, or by cross-pollination. If we take a little look at cross-pollination, so you've got 2 examples there. Cross-pollination will occur from one plant stamen to another plant stigma, and that happens either by insects, as we've got here demonstrated, or by wind. So if we look at each one, for insect pollination to take place, there are a few things that are required. Firstly, brightly coloured petals. We mentioned that right at the start, and you can see in that picture there that lovely red colour. The brightly coloured petals will attract the insects. The insects obviously are essential for this method of pollination. Quite often you will be able to smell the scent, and the insects can detect these scents. So the scent attracts the insect to that flower, and then the insect will feed on it. By feeding on it, that's how we're transporting the pollen. The sticky stigma will allow pollen to be collected or and removed to and from the insect. Then when they land on the next plant, they can deposit that on the stigma. They will have originally taken that pollen from the anther of another plant. It could be done even within the same plant as the insects moving about. Okay, so looking at wind pollination, this will occur when these plants have small or dull petals, so insects aren't actually attracted to them. These plants often don't have a scent, and they will have a really long filament that's got the anther on, and the reason being so that they can be caught and blown away quite easily. And then they also have feathery stigmas to catch the pollen when it's being transferred from one plant to another. Okay, so we've looked at wind pollination and insect pollination. We've also looked at the male and female reproductive organs of the plant. And what you need to make sure you can do is the following. Make sure you can name the male parts of a plant, the female parts of the plant. Really useful if you can also draw and label the parts of the plant reproductive system. Also, try and test yourself and see if you can explain cross-pollination and self-pollination. And then if you can give a description of how insect pollination takes place. Also really helpful if you can do that. And then finally, if you are able to describe how wind pollination takes place, which is the last bit that we've looked at.